with prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God of pilgrimage, be with us on our journey through life. Guard and defend us, shelter and feed us, challenge and inspire us, teach us and lead us, welcome us always, allow us to rest always in your love. Guide us to walk in your way, help us to detect your presence with us always. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. And may the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be glorified in all places through the Immaculate Virgin Mary. Amen. And we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Kulin Nation, and pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, for they hold the memories, traditions, and culture and the hopes of Aboriginal Australia. We remember that this land was and always will be another's dreaming. We make this statement believing that we can walk together to a better future because Emmanuel College commits itself to reconciliation. And as an Emmanuel community, we commit ourselves to accepting everyone as their authentic selves. Each of us are created by God thoughtfully and deliberately, just as we are. Everyone's voice will be heard and everyone will feel loving acceptance and inclusion. So it gives me great pleasure tonight, as I said, to welcome all of you here, but also to welcome the members of our learning executive that are here with us. Just in case, my name is Nicole Allen, I'm Deputy Principal Learning and Teaching. But with us also, we have Diane Martin, our Director of, maybe give a wave, Di, as we go, our Director of Learning. We also have Leanne Matheson and Daniela Bombarderi-Zabo, our Learning and Teaching Leaders for Student Progression at each campus. And tonight we also have Leah Elmer with us, who is our Learning and Teaching Leader Pedagogy at NDC, and also our Digital Services, Digital Learning, not Services, Digital Learning Leader. So the people that are with you from the school tonight are all people in really significant leadership positions of teaching and learning. And we're here to, as I said, support you in being able to support your children in achieving everything that you would like them to achieve. I'm going to hand over to Di.
Thank you, Nicole, and good evening, everyone, and thanks for taking time out of dinner preparation or whatever's happening in your family to join us tonight. And the slide up there is pretty self-explanatory, and why we're doing this for different year levels throughout the week, because we do need to recognise that our students' journey and their learning journey and their classroom experiences need to be authentic and reflect where they are at that particular point in time. So tonight we're looking at our Year 11 students. So they've completed 7, 8, 9 and 10, and they themselves will be generating some excitement about VCE or VCE-VM pathways or VPC pathways. And you might, as parents, I know I certainly did, start to feel that pressure of how do I support my child in this stage. Trusting that at Emmanuel College, the teachers with the learning programs are aware of what they need to provide. And our aim, and hopefully I'm quite sure it's yours as well, is that our students or your children leave the college feeling confident and well prepared for their futures, whatever their future might be and whatever journey they want to take. Our role is to provide them with the building blocks for that, as is your role. So I thought on the next slide is just a little snapshot of the Year 11 program. Below the line, Year 7, 8, 9 and 10, everything we do there from an educational perspective or a curriculum perspective is informed by the Victorian curriculum. But above the line, where your child's embarked now, is all directed and governed by the VCAA, which is the Victorian Curriculum and Assessment Authority. And there are a lot of acronyms in VCE that you will hear over the next 2 years. And if you've had older children, you might already be familiar with some of those. But basically, the VCAA is the governing body that looks at what we are delivering in class to your children. And at Emmanuel College, we can see there we've got quite a suite of subjects. So hopefully within that, there is something that connects with your child and where they want to be in the future. As a Catholic school, it's important, and as a part of our mission statement, that we do offer religion as a compulsory unit for all of our students. But you can see there we have English, and within English there are areas within that study that your child might actually get excited about over another. Some students choose 2 English subjects because they're just excited about everything to do with English. But we offer English literature, English language. We have an EAL program, so English is an additional language. And we also have literacy as part of our VCE VM. We offer a suite of math subjects, humanities, business and economics, science, performing and visual arts, digital technology, design and technology, health and PE, and LOAD. Some of those are VET studies, which is vocational education and training, and some of them are core VCE subjects. So there's a bit going on in Year 11 for your child. And some of our Emmanuel College students may already be doing Year 12 this year. And as parents, you'll be involved in some of that communication that comes home relating to that accelerated study. If we go to the next slide, though, next year, we're looking at the Year 12 and refining their choices and finishing off their year. But Year 11 and 12 really are a bit hard to separate because the journey is about a 2-year process, and for some kids a 3-year if they've accelerated in Year 10. But what this slide shows us is where our children heading. I talked about at the beginning, we want them to be ready for the future, and it depends on what their future pathway is. So you can see here from this document, in Year 11 and 12, there are 2 main senior pathways for kids in Victoria. They'll either do the Victorian Pathways Certificate, which is not the VCE, and it's a program for students who aren't ready to undertake the VCE, but still actually want and need to be engaged in meaningful education and development. And the other pathway is, of course, the VCE, or the Victorian Certificate of Education. And within that, at Emmanuel College, there is a couple of streams, if you like, of VCE. One that we might be most familiar with, which is the one where they will study VCE, they'll do scored assessments during the year, and they'll move on and do exams at the end. And then if you follow the little pathway down, they might do a VET subject as well. They might do a traineeship. They might go into employment beyond school, or they might actually start TAFE in a university pathway. There's also the option for some students where it's appropriate that they might do the VCE in an unscored capacity. So that is, instead of doing their coursework for a grade and sitting exams at the end of the year, they'll still complete all the coursework for the important learning, but they won't sit exams and they won't get the ATAR, which is a tertiary rank. It still means they can do vocational education. It still means they might do a traineeship. It still means they might choose TAFE. And in fact, there are pathways into university on unscored VCE. Not as many, but there are still pathways there. So we're trying to think about, in Year 11, as they start this 2-year journey, where do they want to be at the end? And what other options do they have in their future that they're excited about? At Emmanuel College, there's obviously a careers team that help with that, as well as Leanne Matheson and Danny Bombarderi-Zaba, who you met tonight, who are the student progression leaders, who will often meet with kids along the way to talk about how they're going, where they're heading, and what we can do to help and support them there. And I think that might be a good segue to move to Danny.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Di. Just in terms of the VCE, many of your students, regardless of whether they're doing VM, the baccalaureate, or the straight VCE, all of them have to obtain over 2 years a minimum of 16 units of VCE. And this is a combination of both units 1 and 2 and units 3 and 4. While majority of students who are in Year 11 will be doing units 1 and 2, there may be some students who are accelerated and are this year, in fact, completing units 3 and 4. Whilst we also have some Year 10 students who are accelerating and completing units 1 and 2. So to say Year 11 is simply for units 1 and 2 is not necessarily the case. It's a certificate that is completed over 2 years, and students must demonstrate understanding of all the outcomes within each of those units. At units 1 and 2, these are independent subjects. So students may do a unit 1 subject in semester 1, and then they do have an option, if they want to change a subject for semester 2. However, and this gives them the opportunity to make sure they like the subject that they are doing, because when it comes to year 12, units 3 and 4 are a sequence, so students cannot opt out. They must complete the whole year of that particular subject for units 3 and 4. At units 1 and 2 level, which majority of your children will be completing this year, all assessment is school-based assessment. All we hand into VCAR is whether or not they have satisfactorily demonstrated their outcomes. And the way in which they do this is by completing a number of tasks in class that are graded, that are assessed as satisfactory or not satisfactory, and completing internal assessments, which would include school assessed coursework, so a test, a media analysis, as well as an end of semester or end of unit examination. Those grades are reported to you, but they are internal scores and grades to give you an understanding of how well your child is going in those particular subjects. It's not until units 3 and 4 that students do school assessed coursework where they get graded, and it's the score that we send into VCAR, as well as whether or not they satisfactorily complete each of those units. We want to ensure that our students at Emmanuel College are successful in completing the VCE, regardless of whether they're doing scored, VM, or unscored pathway, and therefore we always make sure that they do more than the minimum requirement of 16 units, including unit 2 across the year at year 11 of Religion Society. So students get credited with an extra unit. So while the minimum requirement is 16 units, our students always do more to make sure that they do achieve. In those minimum requirement of 16 units, there must be 3 units of English. That is 1 unit 1 and 2 plus units 3 and 4. Most students get 4 units in English, so it's never ever a problem. On that, you'll be getting more information from about SACs coming up, which are internally based. But if your child is doing a unit 3 and 4 subject, they would have received a SAC calendar, and there are some new conditions about how SACs are completed and the specifications for when students are absent for those assessments. They'll be coming out to you if they haven't already been sent out to you. Also, I'd like you to note that if your child is accelerating and completing a unit 3 and 4 subject, they will be required this year to also complete the GAT in June. So because they will be doing scored assessment, and so they will complete all the school assessed coursework for a grade, as well as the end of year exam and the GAT in June. And on that note, I'll hand over to Leanne.
Thanks, Danny. So clearly, having listened to about 7 minutes of a conversation and speech about VCE, you are all experts now. But just in case there's any more information you require, we do have a couple of information sources for you. And the best one is our senior course guide, which is updated every year. It's updated because we introduce new subjects most years. So you will have noticed that your students, if you had a child who's gone through previously, you will have noticed that your year 11 child this year had a number of new unit 1 and 2 subjects that they were able to consider for their program. And that's because one of our key goals going forward is to enhance and widen our VCE opportunities for our kids. So if they've taken up one of those new subjects, if they're doing geography, for example, this year, we'll be running VCE geography next year so that they can continue that sequence. A whole range of other things notwithstanding, but the intention is to offer those subjects in 3-4. The senior course guide outlines the expectations for each of the units. It outlines the kinds of ideas and subjects that students are going to be exposed to. And to make certain that you're really never without a copy of the senior course guide, it's available on Sector Learn, Sector Engage, and on the college website. So quite often kids will come and see us and we will say to them straight up, have you looked at the course guide? Because until you've actually gone through that document, you're not properly informed about what the options are for our subjects at Emmanuel. If we could flick to the next slide. We want our kids to leave the college confident and well prepared for the future, but we work within a VCAA structure. We work within rules that are not our own, and we work with a very large number of kids and families. And the thing that is most important is communication between you and us, between your child and their teacher, between us and their teacher. When we speak to students, and we do it pretty regularly, one of the things I always say to them is, we can't help you with a problem if we don't know about the problem. We can't help you with a situation if we don't know that situation exists. So I cannot emphasize enough how important that communication is. And it's one of the reasons that we're having these meetings, to reinforce to parents how important it is for us all to be in communication. One of the rules that we have to abide by is the attendance minimum. The VCAA says that for a student to be successful in any learning unit, they need to attend 50 hours of class in that subject. Given our timetable, that is a minimum of 80% of all classes. Maintaining that attendance is vital. We quite often talk to students who say, I don't get it, I'm not following the subject. And when you go back and look at their attendance, kids sometimes get themselves into a cycle where they say, I'm missing a class, and then they don't catch up and they miss that outcome or key information. And the next thing you know, their involvement in that subject has spiraled. I cannot emphasize enough that we need to have kids at school 80% of the time. We would prefer they were at school 100% of the time, but they must meet the 80% attendance in all their classes. Again, life happens, so please be in contact with us if there is any reason why your child is missing large chunks of time. We believe that involvement in the college life, in the activities, in service, builds their character and their social development. We want our kids to be involved. We want our kids to have to schedule study and activities. We want them to be able to say that they're going out into one of our social justice activities. And we want to enable that as much as we possibly can. We're looking to present a whole child, a whole human being, and you are as much a part of that as we are, but we make certain that we are building those opportunities for our kids. Again, I cannot emphasize enough that we can help you if we know. Sometimes the answer to the questions won't be what you want to hear, and that's because those rules and expectations are established to support every member of our community. One of the key elements of the VCE is that we have to ensure equity, not only across our cohort, but every school has to make certain that they do the same thing, so that when we get to Unit 3 and 4, every student has had the same opportunity. We really value your support in reinforcing these rules with your child, and we are really very, very happy that you have come out tonight to hear us talk about some of these different situations and different ideas around VCE that we want to keep continuing having that conversation with you about. Nicole.
Actually,
Over
it's
to
me.
Leah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
With my digital hat on, talking about Sector Engage. So most of our parents are on Sector and know what Engage is. So this is just a bit of an update on where we're going as we continue the rollout of Sector as our learning management system across the college. So there are some slight differences that parents will see between their view and the student view at the moment, because we are giving staff time to get used to different elements of it before we make it visible to parents. So at the moment, there are some slight differences. We will be opening up what's called a courses tab to parents in term 2, and that will allow you to see an outline of the lessons, resources that the students have been given for those classes. So you can help them where they need help as well, and you can look at what topics they're doing and things like that. The assessment tab at the moment probably doesn't have a lot on it, but we are in the process of updating that so that the different tasks students are required to have, especially at VCE, and all those other pathway options are there for you to see. And that should hopefully have some details around what the task is, what's required in the task, when it's due. It's also the place where you'll find feedback for them as well from their teachers. And hopefully too, so we're starting to get students to put some reflections on that as well, about how they've done, how they think they're going to do, to see where they're at with different elements of the assessment tasks as well. Something that's not on here, because I've only found out this afternoon, is attendance on Sector Engage. We will open that up to parents, so another new tab will pop up, and this will allow parents to log attendance, so absences, sorry, or if your student is going to be late to school, so that you can make us aware of that, and it automatically updates to the attendance for the students. So it's a really important one at VCE or the senior levels because of those attendance requirements. It means we can keep track of that really accurately with your help, and enables you to let us know through the app or through the online portal when your child is going to be late or absent. Another thing that we've released tonight to staff is a homework notification, and that will allow staff to enter a note that you will then see on your dashboard. You'll receive an SMS or an email notifying you that that note has been entered for non-completion of homework. Again, another element that's really important for our VCE senior students, to make sure that they are completing all of those tasks, and trying to make it as transparent as possible and make you as aware as quickly as we can of how they're going and tracking with these particular things. So Sector Engage, if you haven't logged on, please do so. It will be a space where there will be a lot of communication happening. We are moving students onto Sector in a big way so that they're using that as their primary platform too. So it is something we would like parents to engage with as much as they can, and we will put out updates to parents as we open up the different sections.
Thank you, everyone. So we're at that point. That was a very brief snapshot of the teaching and learning that is very specific for Year 11, and a little bit of VCE as well. But we're now at that point where you have an opportunity to ask us questions. What we've done is just put up a little slide that might jog your thoughts a little bit about some of the things you might want to ask questions about, SAC assessments and and there's been some change in that area of SACs, not so much for Year 11s, but for Year 12s, if you've got a student who's accelerating at the moment. We've mentioned about changing subjects, and we've mentioned about the different senior pathways. There might be other questions you have about that, or about careers information, about exams at Year 11 and how they work, how to flag if your child needs help. That might be something that you want some more information about. You might want to ask questions about accelerated programs or joint provision subjects, or anything else that's on your mind at the moment. So the way we'll do this, you can't write in the chat. We find that it's easier in these forums if you just unmute yourself and ask the question, and we will endeavour to answer them. So if you are ready, if you probably the easiest way to do it is to put your hand up by using the raise button at the top of the screen. And when you do that, a number will pop up for us and we can see the order that people have done that, so that we can make sure everything's fair and in order. So,
And Nicole,
yes.
Nicole, can we just add, because we're in a public forum,
Thanks, Di.
yeah, because we're in a public forum, if you've got a really specific question about your child and you might think they might be embarrassed if you ask it in front of everyone, please email us and we'll answer it privately and separately for you, rather than outing a particular issue that your child might be having tonight. I find that kids prefer that. So thank you.
Absolutely. So Scott, first cab off the rank.
All right. I hope you can hear me. I just turned the mute off. My question is with your child, as they start the subject in year 11, and they're a few weeks into it now, and then as time goes on, they start to admit that they're struggling a bit. What would be some advice or some tips to help work through that? Is it where, you know, as a parent, you get more helping them do their work, or to reach out for help and so on?
Somebody want to take that in particular, Leanne or Daniela? Yeah.
Hi, Scott. I think the first thing when your child finally does start to admit that they're struggling is to reach out to the classroom teacher. I think establishing those lines of communication, whether or not you tell your child that you're doing it is up to you. I've known of parents who will contact the teacher and kind of say, will you just let me know what's going on in the class so that I can help my child at home, but I don't want them to know. Or there's, you know, the opportunity to make an appointment and come in and see the teacher. The other thing to do may be to reach out to the house leader. If they're struggling with their well-being, then there are a number of different people who can help. Their homeroom teachers and their house leaders are the first port of call. But if things start to escalate and, you know, we're looking like we're struggling, Danny and I at each of the campuses are available, and we can generally point you towards the right people or reassure you that how things are going. It was very difficult to hear you, so I hope that answered your question.
Thanks so much,
Oh,
Robin.
I did.
Oh, it did? Sorry, Scott, go for it.
That's all right. Well answered. Thank you very much.
No worries at all.
Pleasure, Scott. Robin.
Hi all, thanks for that. I think it's just going on from what Scott's question was, I guess. Are there study groups, formal study groups that the school have or will organise if there's a group of kids that have identified that they're having some issues, or is it more for the kids to organise their own study groups in their own time?
There's probably a mixture of those, but someone else feel free to jump in if you've got more to add. But I know there are teachers who will have, particularly at VCE, will have study groups. There is a number of maths teachers and English teachers that will have special groups at lunchtime for students who are struggling. But there's also, I know Leanne in the past has run a particular VCE study group as well that she might want to have something say something about. But there are also, you know, catch-up clubs and in specific subjects as well. So it doesn't hurt, though, for the student to flag that that's an idea that they would like to get going. They might want to talk to their teacher or talk to Danny or Leanne or one of the other members of the Learning Executive too, and we can always see what's possible. You know, there's study time, there's free periods. There's none in year 11, but when they get to year 12, that might be a great place for some of that to happen as well. But Leanne, do you want to say something about your study group that you had going?
Yeah, so last year, working with the academic captains, we formed senior study group, and that was an opportunity for our students to stay at school, just the year 12s, to stay at school from, I would sit in a room basically from 2:30 in the afternoon until usually 6:30 at night. And the kids stayed, they formed their own study groups, they worked together. It was a great opportunity for them to have a space. We used to provide snacks and tea and coffee, so they thought they were very sophisticated. And although my noodle budget did run out, they were really proactive with working together. And our research does show that if the kids form study groups and kind of teach each other, it's a really good way for them to learn. In Year 11 at the moment, perhaps if somebody wants to organise a bit of a study group, the library is open until 4:15. So it's fine for the kids to go straight to the library after school and spend some time there. But if there are any other suggestions, we're all happy to kind of take them on board and see what we can do.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Robin. Melissa.
Hi, thanks everyone. So this year you removed Google Classroom and you've moved to Sector. We're heading into week 5 now. Is Sector available for the kids to upload their homework into? Because my child's not one who's accelerated. In fact, we have a PLP, we use Rosie Smith, and I raised in week 2 that he couldn't do his homework because he couldn't find his notes. The teachers didn't know where to upload it. I had English teachers emailing him saying, this is your homework for the night, but not just to him, to the whole class. And I had to get a list from his teachers of where everyone wanted the homework to go. So there's no centralised system. I know on Monday they learnt how to use OneNote, but we're heading into week 5 and I feel like they're behind before they even start. So is Sector now available for them to upload their work to? Is it a one platform?
Thanks for that. It was actually, I do remember that email because it got sent to me too. So we did address that issue with staff and showed them again where homework goes. We reminded them that Sector is our central place for all of our work. Even if they are using OneNote or things like that as well, that still has to be linked through Sector so that the students know the one place they actually go to find absolutely everything is Sector. So we know that hasn't worked as well as we would like it to, so that is an ongoing process for it, but I can assure you we have reiterated that with staff again. Again, we did it tonight actually in our meeting after school too, reminding them the homework has to go on Sector. It has to be visible.
So can the kids upload to Sector to save their work so they don't have to email homework in Year 11 to individual teachers? Is that function available? Is it one platform?
It will be available very shortly. We've got to set that up for all the classes. So that is happening at the moment. We've got someone working on that so that should be done by early next week at the latest. For homework, for class tasks, there'll be a spot they can go to the same way they do their benchmarks, their assessment tasks, things like that as well. That will be the spot that they will upload their classwork to.
Is there a reason that you'd remove like a one platform like Google Classroom and replace it with something that's not ready? Like for a parent of someone who struggles going into Year 11, having to pull bits from here and bits from there and save bits here and save bits there, and it's just not, it's not great.
Unfortunately, with tech transitions, it is going to be difficult no matter what way we go. It's the way it is unfortunately unfolding at the moment. Every place is having the same difficulties as they're going through the changes. We have to consider security for our students and therefore our families because of the accessibility now that can happen. So that's one of the reasons we've gone away from Google, is they're not as secure as other platforms at the moment. And we're fully aware that this has not been a smooth transition at all. So it hasn't been ideal. We are working on it as much as we possibly can with our staff to support them. We know with the students that it's been difficult too. We've gone through training with them as well in recognition of that to get them onto the right Microsoft platforms to link with their sector. So we will hopefully get that sorted very, very soon. But we do understand that it has been very frustrating.
So there's no ETA on when they can upload to Sector?
It should be next week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's certainly coming. And thank you for your patience for all of you in terms of the transition to Sector. I think I hope you can appreciate that any IT transition is not straightforward. You're dealing with lots of staff that are at different levels of ability and experience. It's not as straightforward as some other transitions might be, but we're doing the best that we certainly can. And one of the really important reasons that we made the decision to close down Google Classroom was exactly what Melissa was talking about, that particularly for our Year 7s, they would come to secondary school and in some subjects they would be using Google, some subjects they'd be using Teams, some subjects they would be using Sector. And that was incredibly confusing, as Melissa's just identified. So we've closed down those other access points and everything now needs to go through Sector. But yes, we are going through a transition in making sure that that's all working as perfectly as it should be. But hopefully it won't be very long at all. Leah and others in support of her are working really hard to upskill everyone. But I hope you can appreciate it's not a straightforward job. Yeah, thanks so much. I hope I get this name right. Mayank? Hello? Mayank? Monica Kennedy?
Yeah, hi there. I just wanted to, sorry, I've got a bit of a cold.
No worries
ask
at all.
a question. I had heard that RE Unit 3 and 4 is going to be made compulsory next year. I'm not sure if that's the case.
Yeah,
Right.
no, that's definitely misinformation. So what we have done this year is that there's a school-based RE unit that is compulsory for our Year 12 students. It's one period a week. It's not a VCE assessed subject. It's an acknowledgement of us, the fact that we are a Catholic community and that there are really important things in acknowledgement of that need to be covered. It's very, very much focused on students' own well-being and self-development. But it is one period a week, but there's absolutely no intention of bringing in Unit 3 and 4 Religion and Society for everyone.
Yep, all good. Thanks for that.
Oh,
Thanks
no
for
worries
clearing
at
it
all.
up. Cheers.
That's a pleasure. Udita?
Hi, I have a question about the 80% attendance here. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello, we can sort of just hear. There's a bit of feedback on your line. So, hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
I have a general question about the 80% attendance. Say if a student arrives late in a class, would you mark them as absent for the entire day, or do you record attendance subject by subject?
All right, before we answer, Udita, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself.
Sorry?
Can you mute before we answer, because we're getting feedback that everyone can hear when we speak. Thank you so much. Guy or Leanne or Jenny, do you want to take that one?
Happy to. And it's a good question, Udita. So the 80% attendance is per class because students just with luck of the draw may miss more time in one class than the other. So every class is scaled independently of the other. If a student is late to class, they'll be marked late, but that actually won't mean that attendance is impacted for the entire day across all of their subjects. They'll actually be marked present for that subject, but late. What we would be doing though is probably having a conversation with the student and then potentially with families if that became a pattern. So they were always late to a particular class. We'd be really curious then what's going on for that student, with our first agenda being how do we help the student manage that differently or better. But certainly if someone is late in the morning, they're not marked as absent for the whole day. They're simply marked as late. Where a student accumulates an impact on their attendance is if they are regularly having days off throughout the year. For example, if they are doing sport, however, school-based absence, that isn't marked against their 80%. So I hope that helps with that understanding there.
Thanks so much, Di. Just have one more try. Mayank? Is Mayank there to ask the question? No, Gurpreet Singh.
Yeah, hi. My question is, mobile phones can be very distracting in the classroom. So what's the policy regarding mobile phones?
The students are not allowed to have their mobile phone in class. At all times, mobile phones have to be in their locker. Students are only allowed to access their mobile phones for a couple of minutes at the beginning of recess and the beginning of lunch. They're not allowed to be removed from their locker. So that policy is in place. We agree wholeheartedly, and no student should have their mobile phone on them in class. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. No worries at all. Adam.
Good evening. My question's around exams. How are students assessed? Do they need to pass exams? How does it? Yeah. So how's the scoring work in year 11?
Want to take that one?
Thank
Sure.
you.
In year 11, I think it was Danny that mentioned it. In year 11, what we report officially to the VCAA is just S or N, so satisfactory or not satisfactory. But what we really want to do in year 11 is also provide students with a bit of a benchmark of where they're going and how they're achieving in that subject. So along the way, they'll be doing assessments to demonstrate their understanding of outcomes, and we'll score those unofficially at a school level. And included in that will be an exam experience, because we obviously recognise that students need to, particularly at a senior level, learn some of the skills with examinations. But what actually contributes towards their S result or their pass result in year 11 is whether throughout the year they've actually demonstrated an understanding of the outcomes being covered in that class. It's part of the reason why 80% attendance is so important, because a teacher needs to be able to authenticate that a student can actually demonstrate all the work along the way, not just do well in an examination. So we do provide an exam experience in year 11. We provide some timed assessments. We provide a range of different assessment styles to help those students demonstrate the outcomes, all with a view to preparing them for what they'll do the following year in units 3 and 4, which are scored assessments. Neville, is that sufficient on that one for you?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks so much.
No worries, you're welcome.
Alyssa Benjamin.
Hi, thanks so much for this. I just have a question in regards to it's a particular subject, so I hope this is okay. I understand there's not a legal studies teacher at the moment for year 11, so I'm just wondering how the kids' outcome assessments in class are being done and how they're being prepared for any exams or assessments that need to be handed in.
So which campus is your child at?
At Altona, St Paul's.
At SPC. So
Yep.
It's certainly not the case at both campuses, but there are on both campuses a small number of classes that are not yet covered by teachers. Absolutely, because of the teacher shortage. We've actually done really, really well compared to many other schools, particularly in our area, but that doesn't mean that, we certainly understand that there's concern. There's concern on our part as well for those classes who
Yeah.
don't have a teacher at the moment. Having said that, though, the way that we are supporting those classes is in making sure that as much as we possibly can, the teachers, the CRTs that have been put in there, or the replacement teachers that have been put in there, are have some experience with teaching that subject, and all of the content is being prepared by the experienced teachers of that subject who are in the school. Legal studies is one that there are multiple classes across the two campuses, so there are other staff who, unfortunately, their loads are full taking the other legal studies classes, but they have been involved in the preparation of those materials. We're working really, really hard to try and alleviate, that situation.
Yeah.
And hopefully it won't be too long. But I think in the meantime, as I said, just try and, I know, as I said, it's not straightforward, but just trust that we are doing everything we possibly can to make sure that those students are supported well. Di, do you want to say anything more about that? Or you don't have to, but I just didn't know whether you wanted to.
No, actually, Nicole, I think that was answered really well. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Can I just ask, will additional support be provided though in the leader? So should a teacher not be, found in an appropriate time frame, how are the kids going to be supported to make sure that they are prepared?
Yeah, I think we're making decisions as we go along, and particularly if it goes on longer, then, absolutely discussions will be had about how we might be able to reshuffle, for example. I'm certainly not making any promises, but I know that's, certainly what we've done last year in some of those situations where we were really struggling to find a teacher long term. We reshuffled teachers at a point to cover those VCE subjects in particular. So as I said, lots of, there are things that are possible. At the moment, we're still hopeful that we'll get a teacher. And we are putting those supports in. It's early days, it's year 11 too. So as we talked about before, the assessment is internal. And so the stakes, absolutely, we want the students to be prepared well, and that's what we're aiming to do. But the stakes are not quite as high as they are in year 12 when the assessments are external.
Yeah, appreciate that.
So as I said, doesn't mean that, we're not serious about it, but certainly, but there will come a time when we'll have to do something if we haven't been able to find a teacher, absolutely. So I suppose, know that the dilemma about the teacher shortage is something that occupies a lot of our time and our space at the moment, and trying to work out what the best way is to distribute the teacher resources we have, and to make sure that all the classes are as supported as they possibly can be. But also know that we absolutely understand your concern. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
No worries at all. Mayank, I think you're back, Mayank Sharma.
That's right. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, I had few trouble with my computer. Now it's on phone. So
no, that's fine. Well done. Well done for trying again.
Now, I have a few questions. Now, first part is like, how many subjects we can choose? Is there any number of subjects which are accounted for ATAR, or like, is there a limit or minimum subjects we need?
Somebody want to take that one?
Yep, happy to. So ATAR is calculated in units 3 and 4, so year 12, on their study in English, whichever strand of English they choose, plus 3 others, which make up your top 4. So the subjects that your child does the best in, the top 4 subjects, are taken as part of their ATAR, plus a percentage of a 5th or a 6th subject in some cases, if a student has done 6 subjects. So they might have done an accelerated subject in year 11 and then 5 subjects in year 12. That would give them 6. The score is calculated on the top 4 subjects, plus 10% of their 5th and 10% of their 6th subject. Beyond 6 subjects, there's no advantage at all.
Okay, and if a child has too many subjects on the plate, so what's the goal? So can they drop? Or now I know the question about Ari was asked earlier. So is it possible to drop it?
So the load that Emmanuel provide, which is 5 subjects plus study, we consider to be really quite manageable for the majority of students in the college. It's certainly not overextending. And my advice would actually be, if your child is starting to talk about feeling like they're not coping, as Leanne said, that's the time to come and have a chat. Come and let your child's class teacher know that they're feeling like they are not coping or they're feeling overwhelmed. The earlier you start those conversations, you'll find the more that we can do to support them actually see how they are really going, and maybe there's just an area where they need some additional guidance or support. But very rarely is the solution actually to do a reduced load. There are some really specific circumstances where that's considered, but for the majority of kids, actually, it's a really achievable workload. But sometimes they start to feel like they are not coping because they might need a study strategy, or they might need some organisational skills, or they just might need some reassurance. So my advice actually before considering reducing a workload is having a chat about where your child's actually at, or encouraging them to come and have a chat to their depending on their campus, with Leanne or Danny in student progression.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. And so one more question is, if a kid is doing a language outside the school, so will it be counted in 8R, or it's no? Because I know language skills upscale the 8R. So just want some information on that.
So if the language they're studying outside of the school is recognised as a VCE unit, they can that can potentially contribute to their 8R if it's the top in their top 4. I'd be really cautious around the idea of anything getting scaled up or down, because we often hear people talking about, I'm going to choose this particular subject because it's scaled up, and actually for that to be effective, they actually have to do really, really well in that subject. So sometimes they are better doing the subjects that they enjoy, that they're going to excel in, and get full marks that way, rather than put themselves under pressure choosing a subject simply because it is scaled up. It may be that your child actually also really wants to do that and enjoys that subject, but it's fraught to choose a subject because there's a perception that it's scaled up or down by VCAR. So if they're doing a language outside of school and it's a registered VCE study, it can actually contribute.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for all my answers. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Neville. Neville? Manya Kolsi.
Can the language be counted as a 6th subject?
Yes, it can.
Yes, it can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
No worries at
And
all.
where can we where can we sign up for that?
So for a language other than the ones that we teach?
Yes.
So in general, is that a language that you've already been studying?
Oh, no.
No. So there are some languages available from Virtual Schools Victoria, or there's the Victorian Language School, VLS, which is an online school. But there are also, you might have to do some research. There are other schools on the weekend that do other languages as well that are VCE studies. Does anyone want to add anything to that? That was off the top of my head. I'm not an expert in that area by any stretch of the imagination.
The Victorian School of Languages operates across the state. They will do Saturday and Sunday classes. They will do online classes. There is a test in the particular language that you're going into. Particularly if you haven't done kind of their base study, they will test you in the language. I know that Virtual School Victoria has closed enrolments.
Yes.
I'm not certain about VSL.
It's
All right,
also
thank you
worth
so much.
adding why you're wanting to choose that language at a VCE level, and with the hope of it being included in your score, is actually worth giving some consideration to as well. And there's some great careers stuff there that you could talk to around why that would be something you would consider.
All right, thanks.
Pleasure. Neville, are you there, Neville?
Yes, sorry, it was on mute, yeah.
No worries at all.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question. What is the procedure if my child wants to change subjects mid-year?
Danny or Leanne? Yeah.
Hi, Neville. So if your student's in year 11 and wishes to change a subject mid-year, there is a process that we go through. The information about that is put on sector notices so that it's dealt with in homeroom. Kids know where to go. There's a form that needs to be filled out and, most importantly, signed by you to make that change. If a student is thinking about dropping mathematics, we are particularly keen for them to go and see our careers advisors, because that is a decision that can have ramifications on their options after year 12. So it's a fairly quick internal process, but it needs to have a lot of thinking done around it beforehand to make certain that your student is aware that they are making decisions that might have some consequences.
Oh yeah, sure. I got your point. Understood your point. Just one more question to that. When will it open? Sorry, when can we start applying for it?
Not until term 2. Danny and I will make all of that information available before semester 2 starts.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks.
No worries.
No worries at all. So I think that's brought us to the end of our questions. Just make sure that no one else has anything more. No. So just left to say thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you to the members of the Learning Executive for being here tonight. We certainly hope that that has answered some of your questions and assisted you in understanding better and identifying, as I said, the ways that you can support your sons and daughters really significantly. There's lots of research that tells us that if parents are able to and are supported by schools to support their children with their endeavours at school, that students in general do much, much better. We need parents involved actively, and your presence here tonight proves that that's certainly what you're doing. So thank you so much for your support. If you have any further questions or you think of something later, don't hesitate to email one of us or email studentservices@ecmel.catholic.edu.au, and that email will be directed to the right place. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.